This current COVID resurgence is hitting one state especially hard, Florida. That's where Governor Ron DeSantis is finding his long effort to attack basic proven COVID safety measures is blowing up in his face. But far more importantly, it's blowing up in the face of his constituents. COVID cases and hospitalizations there in Florida breaking all-time records. Experts say the state's ICUs look like a, quote, war zone. This is a time when states need objective, sober leadership. But DeSantis is only doubling down on his partisan ideological approach, blaming everything from the media to immigration policy for what is happening in his state, instead of addressing what he and the state government can do now to curb the spread.
Obviously, media does hysteria.
Joe Biden has taken to himself to try to single out Florida over COVID.
You try to fearmonger.
He's imported more virus from around the world by having a wide open southern border.
And this has been a really negative thing throughout this whole thing with some of these, quote, experts, some of the media.
While DeSantis talks about these, quote, experts with scare quotes, the actual experts and leaders are the people figuring out how to help Americans deal with this, people who face the risk of infection or death. And that's regardless of whether they're in a red or blue state. The federal government now jumping in with emergency measures to try to help Florida, trying to combat some of his failures there from the DeSantis administration, sending 200 ventilators, 100 nasal kits. This is literal triage. And that is actual government leadership and policy. And while the policy tools to combat COVID have evolved over the past year and a half, DeSantis has not. He seems very eager to just keep relitigating fights over lockdowns, which aren't even the main thing going on right now, or masking, when the urgent issue in Florida right now starts with getting people vaccinated, despite what has been a very effective levels of right-wing disinformation and other problems. And the other issue in Florida, if you're making a list that would be high on it, is getting more government support to the hospitals and public institutions on the front lines. But instead, DeSantis has been sticking to his talking points.
There will be no lockdowns.
Got to thank the president for his support of Florida.
The question is we can either have a free society or we can have a biomedical security state.
Just as the SEALs surmounted obstacles to bring Osama bin Laden to justice,
Some of these people get put out there all the time when they've been dead wrong over the last year.
so too would the Martin County school system find a way to provide parents with a meaningful choice.
Make America great again.
Let me tell you this, if you're coming after the rights of parents in Florida, I'm standing in your way. I'm not going to let you get away with it.
Stupid. And the politics don't stop. The facts show DeSantis is literally exploiting this ongoing deadly epidemic in his state to politic and to fundraise. His political operation combining attacks on Dr. Fauci with its political fundraising operation. They're hawking T-shirts as well as beer koozies that proclaim, "Don't Fauci my Florida." Now, for a governor in the middle of a deadly virus, the first point here would be grow up. The second would be, if you take DeSantis's shirt and beer cozies at their word, well, let's think about it. The grim fact is many people in Florida now wish these policies were Fauci'd. So I'm sorry to discuss this at such a stupid level, but the governor made the shirt. A lot of people are saying, if you want to keep it at this second grade reading level, please, Fauci my Florida. Because the facts show there would be fewer people fighting to breathe in hospitals in Florida and fewer people dead in Florida if the mainstream proven policies, including a more robust vaccination program there, was working and being applied. And while I'm willing to speak at a stupid and second grade level, if that's the chosen way to talk, I want to be very clear about how serious this is. I mentioned people fighting to breathe. In Florida, the people fighting to breathe include a lot of small, little children. Because Florida now leads the country in these pediatric hospitalizations of children. And that is another grim fact. And again, let's look at that as human beings, because it shouldn't have anything to do with partisanship. That's the state of reality for what DeSantis is doing right now. I mention all that because look where he's headed, banning safety measures like mask mandates and threatening to dock pay of school officials or teachers who take a different approach. Now, I want to be clear, having said that some of what Mr. DeSantis is saying and doing is stupid, I want to be clear about how this all works respectfully. There are legitimate debates about balancing safety measures with other competing values. But DeSantis is not engaging in many of those types of debates. What he is doing is a MAGA-style trolling exercise in the middle of the deadly outbreak. So you say, okay, Ari, well, you're saying that. Prove it. All right, let me explain. For example, one can easily argue that it is valid to debate how do you encourage vaccinations while respecting personal freedom. For example, there's no federal or criminal mandate to get vaccinated in America right now. The Biden administration right now has been balancing that very set of issues in its vaccine rules for federal employees, and they're exploring how to respect religious objections. That's what I would refer to as a valid debate. That's totally different from DeSantis playing politics with, for example, basic health information. He literally tried to ban any verification process to find out who's vaccinated. And that just comes down to information. So he's the one trying to, in a very 1984 style way, restrict information while claiming he's for liberty and freedom. Now, how do you know that's over the line? Well, I'll give you one piece of reasoning. A federal judge recently blocked Florida's attempt to ban that kind of vaccine information, saying that vaccine documentation or passports cannot just be banned outright by the state. Wow, freedom. Now, for context, parents know many states and localities assess kids' health and vaccination information. That's just information and transparency. Just like some businesses will exercise their freedom, there's that word again, their freedom to offer their services, businesses or gatherings for only vaccinated groups. That is a choice on the freedom spectrum. And many are choosing it based on the advice of experts and because it's safer. Now, it's not like Governor DeSantis can stop private enterprise from that freedom, can he? Well, guess what? He tried to do that too. He was threatening really large fines against a cruise line that just was trying to require vaccination proof for its private customers. That was so extreme, a judge rebuffed him there as well. Meanwhile, Florida parents also suing DeSantis over some of these similar tactics. The whole thing is a mess largely of his making. And Delta is, of course, a challenge in many places regardless, but experts are saying that DeSantis's policies, measured out, are raising the death rate. They're keeping Florida in this state, breaking its own records, a kind of pandemic horror show. Again, I want to be very clear about why we care about this and why journalists report on it, because of the news and human significance this has. A very real human cost.
If Florida and Louisiana were countries and not states, they would be number 1 and 2 in the world for the incidence of COVID.
It was just insane to go from having one COVID patient to having all COVID patients again.
It's definitely taken a toll on us.
All ages from COVID are dying, and it's got me concerned that I don't want to get COVID and pass away from it.
I was dying. I was listed on my worst enemy.
We lost an adolescent in our children's hospital of 16 years of age to COVID.
It's just extremely busy, and it's putting a lot of strain on the EMTs, paramedics, and firefighters.
We're back to square one. That's why I'm frustrated.
This is real. This is not a forum for political fundraising. This is not a time to attack Dr. Fauci or the CDC or other public servants to make yourself money, to enrich your political operation in a deceitful play for MAGA voters, or to try to position yourself for the next election or a presidential run so that you appeal to MAGA voters living in some other state at the literal cost of your own constituents who are struggling to breathe, who are dying. And for all that talk about people wanting to just get through 2020, remember that? People said that in Florida, like many other places. Yeah, let's get through 2020. Well, Governor DeSantis' documented COVID failures here on policy have made 2021 far worse for people in Florida than 2020 ever was. We're not here to diminish an entire state, but boy, Florida is not where you want to be in 2021. Largely, not exclusively, but largely because of these documented failures by DeSantis. And that means 2022 could be even worse in Florida.